everybody, here we are, studio 3.5. I set up outside in the sunshine this morning, would you believe, but a neighbour has decided to start installing fence posts. He's hammering away out there, which also affects studio 1, consequently we're here at studio 3.5. Right, we'll get this show on the road, we've got some news coming up, then we'll go into matters arising, then we'll link up the film for the film club, which is all about buses. We're on the buses this week, as well as look into next week's film. Spluttering a bit this morning, not in gear yet. Am I ever? Right, bad news. Bad news. Concerning. I heard nothing about Sumac this week. All right, as we go to press, as it were. Not heard anything about Sumac from James. A quick update. Just heard from James. Sumac has dramatically improved after 3 weeks of almost daily vet visits. Brilliant, well done. She's back playing ball and eating like a pig. We were lucky to have got her treated in time, and she really appreciates your good wishes. And that's brilliant, well done. And some more good news. We need some good news, don't we? Michael's back, Michael from Poland. Michael's been with us since inception of the channel, more or less. And for Michael to go missing is a bit of a worry. But anyway, Michael's back, and he says, "Morning, Ron. Just standing at..." Oh, that's the other one. I told you. Michael says, "That's a lovely walk, Ron. Lying here in my hospital bed, you've cheered me up no end." Ah, so Michael's been struck down with something. Michael, come on, get better. You know, on the channel here, we're all rooting for you. Get better, Michael, and back to your usual old form. I just hope you're not there as a result of those dancing lessons you were taking, because a few people on here would feel guilty if that was the case, Michael, so we're all hoping. Right, abandoned railway adventures then. Ron says, "Good morning, Ron. Just standing at the back for matters arising." Then dashing off to the Malvern show on a plant hunt. So Ron's standing at the back so he can pop out as soon as possible and go on a plant hunt. How'd you get on, Ron? Did you get what you wanted? It's a bit expensive, I would have thought, over there. Unless you go on the last day, don't they do a sale or something? I think they probably do. The vlog that we're commenting on here, then the last vlog that we're commenting on was Winchcombe, a look at Winchcombe in days of yore. Malcolm Richardson says, "Winchcombe, a model of a heritage railway which speaks for itself." Yeah, you'll hear a bit of praise for this as we go through. Jim Nichols, "Ron, I think we need to have a whip round to buy you a new hat." What's wrong with that? Nothing wrong with that. Plenty of ventilation, Jim. Can't beat it. He says, "A great movie which reminded me of travelling to school on steam trains back in the 1950s. He says, "I enjoyed the music, especially the first part, which nearly had me dancing around the room." No, don't do it, Jim. We've got one in hospital, we don't need two. Actually, Jim says if he started that, the family would probably have him locked up. I think they're looking for an excuse. Lionel and Mary Travels. Lionel. This is probably the best presented heritage line around. So much detail from the past. He says, "I'm not familiar with that blue loco. Do you know which region it originated from?" No, I don't, but John Keeping popped in. He says, "The King class locos were manufactured by the Great Western Railway at their Swindon factory in the late 1920s. The blue livery was one of the trial colours by British Rail in their early years. They all ended up being painted Brunswick green later on." There you go. Thank you very much, John. West Country Wanderings then, our Paul, who's getting on with his filming of the River Severn. He did a piece from Arley to Beauty, was it, the other day, Paul? Beautiful bit of film. He's really putting them together well. Paul says, "Winchcombe is my favourite station on the GWSR. So much character, and the fact that it was an original station that was moved from Monmouth makes it more special." Yeah, that's a real station there. It used to service Monmouth. They bought it, moved it up. Morris Mannion says, "Forgot that you were not actually doing any narration on the film. I was so busy listening to the steam trains." Yeah, something about those, isn't it? Trev Joyce. Trev Joyce with a tale of woe. Excuse me. He said, last time I went to Winchcombe was to travel on the extension to Broadway, which had just recently been opened. However, the day didn't get off to a great start. It was very hot and I was wearing shorts. Not a pretty sight. Shortly after parking the car and starting to make my way to the station building at Toddington, I felt something wet running down the back of my leg. Looking down, I noticed it was a reddy brown colour, and thinking I was leaking from somewhere, panic set in. A few anxious moments later and all was revealed. The ring pull on a can of Pepsi in my backpack, I decided to let go and the contents were running out the bottom. Oh, what a start to your day. Ugh, sticky, horrible. Ugh. Peter Smith. Those old wagons, if only they could speak, what tales they could tell. Yeah, absolutely right. They've probably done a few million miles, haven't they? The gunpowder one scared me a little, and as others say on here, Winchcombe is my favourite station. Another vote for Winchcombe then. Pete Payne, good morning Ron. It's not just me who couldn't post then. No Pete, no. Especially last week, everybody seemed to be having trouble uploading stuff. I don't know what YouTube were up to. No, it definitely wasn't just you, Pete. Now, one of our members was interested or looking at the possibility of installing some broad gauge rail in his garden. No names. Recovery of broad gauge fence posts, etc. I've got 3 handsome GWR boundary markers mounted on broad gauge rail in our garden. Wow. All donated by local farmers. They are very heavy and mounted on broad gauge rail in our garden. They're very heavy and will last an eternity. All 3 mounting posts are 4 feet long and have a short section of BG rail riveted at the bottom foot to form an inverted T. All 3 were removed by JCB, having defied the manual efforts of multiple burly blokes. I suggest this is the reason that so much broad gauge still survives. Yeah, if it's that difficult to get out of the ground, who's going to bother? Yeah, right. Thank you very much for that, Philip. You lucky devil. Imagine having that in your garden, a garden feature. I had one of those once, had to leave it behind. Engage on a shelf. Well, there's a coincidence. Nice to finish with the King Edward II. The King class was the most powerful of GWR locos, although there are arguments that the Castle class was the better of the two. He says, I filmed the new lighting on my layout this week. This is our Simon's Engage layout. He's doing some work on it, crikey me. He's going well, I have to say. He said, I had you stood next to the supermarket in my row of shops, because whenever Simon films now, he has a little miniature Engage Parkinson's walks and a little TARDIS. He puts them on his layout and you've got to see if you can spot them. So, last week he says, I had you stood next to the supermarket in my row of shops. However, when it came to filming, you'd fallen over. Did you spend the evening in the pub? And of course David Bellani then jumps in. David jumps in from Spain and says, so that's what's in the TARDIS then. Oh dear. Michael Miller says, here's another bone of contention. You seem to have acquired adverts at the beginning. Michael, nothing to do with me, I assure you. I've not monetised the channel, I've not done anything to it. But YouTube did threaten to put adverts on films, whether they were monetised or not. It looks like that's going to happen then. Sorry about that, Michael. Nothing I can do, I'm afraid. Right. Stephen Chaparral. Winchcombe is much better than Broadway because they relocated an original building rather than reconstruct something long gone. I did hear that the GWR was offered Bourton-on-the-Water station building for use at Broadway, but refused, leading to this fine surviving building being lost to history. So it rather sounds as if they've demolished Bourton-on-the-Water station. Ooh, that's not good, is it? Mandy Martin says, great shares, new friends. So it sounds like Mandy's a newbie come to join us. Hello Mandy. Don't forget to put comments on. We love to hear comments, read comments. Nice to have you with us. Railway Christina. Why isn't the station called Greet? What she's referring to there is the Winchcombe station is actually in the village of Greet. So why isn't it called Greet? I don't really know, to be honest. It says, beware the ghosts of monks, because next stop down the line is Hales Abbey. Beware the ghosts of monks. Yeah. David Bellani from why am I putting you in Strauss all of a sudden, David? I can't work it out. David from Spain. I got caught out with missing comments as well. It's a shame that it does sometimes. I have investigated, but I couldn't come up with any conclusion as to why. So, yes, somebody else. I mean, I get the same problem with other sites, I have to say. Now and again, YouTube take exception to a comment. And if it's quite a long one, it's a bit annoying, really. I read somewhere that you guys are doing what I do now. I type it out on a separate Word document or whatever, and copy and paste, so that if it goes missing I can just copy and paste again until it goes through. Yeah, it's damned annoying, isn't it, really? Grumpy old man, Jim. Yeah, thanks, Jim. You're referring back to Simon putting a copy of the Parkinson's walks and the TARDIS on his N-gauge. And grumpy old man Jim says, we'll be able to tell your likeness on the N-gauge track by the hole in the hat. What's wrong with it? What? Right. The film then. Last week, which was Long Marsdon, the research centre. And then a walk up the track from there. Yeah, a lot of interest, that one. Morris Mannion, what a fantastic old church. Yeah, we managed to pop our nose in a church as well while we were out there. It says, nice to see a little slice of old England. Was that me or was that the church on there, Morris? Jim Nichols, he says the church was a highlight today. The bell tower looked very ancient and unusual, as did the porch. There's obviously a lot of history in that area, and I guess Shakespeare may well have been acquainted with the village. I doubt if he ever rode the railway though. Oh, I doubt he did. Oh dear. Stephen Chappell. Stephen knows a bit. Long Marston Station was an original OW&W structure which remained after the GWR rebuilt the branch as part of its Birmingham to Bristol main line. Interesting. Interesting. You've got a few of us scratching our heads now, mind you. Yeah, now Mark Spittle says, I walk the Greenway all the time. It's glorious during the spring and summer months. There was talk of reopening it and linking it with the Honeybourne Loop again, but it's not feasible. If you could have followed the entire route to Stratford, you would have passed by the little cafe at Millcote, which is an old railway carriage. That could be worth a visit, couldn't it? And both of the halt platforms. Sounds like a revisit's on the cards there. Pete Payne, oh dear, Pete Payne. Can make us all feel envious now. He said, like you, I love rummaging around in the undergrowth in the hope of finding something interesting. At my old area, I found a very sturdy Metropolitan Railway kissing gate, complete with its oak gate hidden in the bushes. What a find! I'd have had to have that away. Oh Lord. He says, I walked past it for over 50 years without noticing it. Crikey. Today you have a new viewer. Oh, lovely. 9-week-old Sid Barrett. A Hungarian white-haired Whistler. My new best friend. Yeah, isn't that lovely? Yeah. Pete used to have his old best friend dragging him out and walking everywhere. They had lots of adventures together. Yeah, good. Lionel and Mary travels again then. Our Lionel. He said that yellow piece of train looked like both power cars of a track maintenance train. John Owen jumped in to answer. The yellow banana, referred to by Lionel, I believe are ex-HSTs modified at the Derby Works, completely stripped out and jam-packed with track monitoring equipment along with overhead equipment for the electrified lines. Yeah, I mean, we were saying those things travel the rails at 70 miles an hour and somehow they're checking the track. Amazing bits of kit. Yeah, oh well. Malcolm Richardson, now Malcolm then. Not much innovation appears to be taking place at Long Marsdon site, unless those were decoys in the siding. Ooh, could be, you never know your luck. Possibly a great site for a railway centre though, with trips over the rails from Honeybourne maybe. Do they have open days? Ah, now here's the $64,000 question, isn't it? Do they have open days? Well, stay with us, nearly there. Paul from West Country Wanderings. He says, interesting to see that some of the lines at Long Marsdon depot are now overhead line electrified. I don't recall seeing that when I made my video about it 18 months ago. So in 18 months they're still working then, aren't they? Still keeping it going. I run from Abandoned Railway Adventures. Have you had a chance to see his Morton and Marsh to Shipston part 1 yet? Amazing. A very enjoyable adventure, Ron. You had the same fencing issues that I had on the converted tramway, yeah. We were struggling to find them. All I can say from personal experience is that a post and plain wire fence isn't very stock proof. Plain wire stretches. Ah, yes. Hence the adjustable eye bolts. And the wires will sag if lent on by sheep or cattle. Yeah, so they've ripped out the plain wire and replaced it with something else. Ah. Nicholas Bent obviously used to live somewhere near Long Marsdon. He said, we used to visit on a weekend and ask at the gate if we could have a look around. Amazingly, we were often allowed to clamber over the diesel shunters they had there. Wow, they actually let you in. Wow. So I'm not sure health and safety existed then. It sounds like it. The Innovation Centre now hosts an annual railway industry exhibition, Rail Live. It's in June and you have to apply in advance for the tickets. They run a passenger service along the line from Honeybourne to a platform inside the estate while this is on. Wow! So you can actually go to Honeybourne, grab a train, rumble up that line that we saw, and then have a look around that centre. Wow. Railway Christina again then. I could spend hours at that depot just looking at all that stock. And that church. I've just looked up Rail Live, and the Innovation Centre is open for an exhibition on the 21st and 22nd of June. Now that's fast approaching, so if you're interested in that, get yourself onto the web a bit smartish. Well, beautiful, well done Christina, that's very kind of you, thank you. Marilyn Barderstone, I don't recall hearing from Marilyn before, so that's lovely. Hi, thank you for today's video, you're welcome. We were lucky enough to go on a rail tour into the depot probably 15 years ago. And we had a short trip round the site on a DMU. Wow. David from Spain. Very interesting to see Long Marsdon. It pops up quite frequently in the railway magazine. Yeah, I can imagine it would. I wonder what Sherlock Holmes would have made of those missing fence posts and mysterious holes. Recent inquiries about the presence of concrete on the end of the fence posts. Somebody not replacing divots? I think one of us out there might be squirming at the moment. You know who you are. He said, I saw that the path was sponsored by TNT, so perhaps they were just blown up. Baz Murphy says they used to have open days where you could walk around at one time. Don't know if they still do, yeah? It appears that they do. But he says most of the carriages and power units arrive there as scrap already. I suppose if they've served their main useful life, then they don't mind cutting them up. You wouldn't want to do that with a new one, would you? Cutting and pasting and whatever you do with it. He says, along the track you walk, there used to be a carriage cafe. Yeah, I heard about that previously, didn't we? It'd be worth a look. AH, which is Adrian. Why are we having to suffer those annoying adverts? Your films have always been free of them until today. Adrian, as I said before, it's nothing I've done. Innocent. It's a great pity, really. Trev Joyce then. Trev has the last say this week. Trev. My post appears not to. My post seems not to have appeared again, so I've reproduced it below. Second time lucky. Trev's having trouble as well, trying to load these things up. Ah dear. Anyway, Trev does what Trev normally does on here now. He's gone and had a look at the area. He's dug out his history and produced it all there for you guys to read. Wonderful. He covers the, he covers, see, this happened to me, didn't it? Most of these vlogs, towards the end I start to jump out of gear. Trev then. Trev covers the local routes, the local network of rails all round and various adjoining railways. Brilliant stuff. He comments on the Class 43 HSTs. He tells us about the signal box position and the rail layout all around that area, including the rail crossing. He goes into some detail on the wire cross keeper's cottage. Brilliant. Thank you very much, Trevor. Good read. Thanks for that. Right, so now we get to Film Club. Visit to the old bus museum. I don't think we've had this for a while. I hope we haven't anyway. I couldn't find it. So we'll have another wander to the old bus museum. Quite an interesting film anyway. And then next week's video is Pilning. Pilning Station north of Bristol. That's been opened and closed more times than the cuckoo clock doors, I think. An amazing story. But before or after you watch the film, if you go onto their website, they've got a dedicated website, and you can read the stupidity of it all. At the moment, it's double tracked through the station, but only one platform operating. So if you want to get, let's say, into Wales, you get on the train and go into Bristol, jump onto another train and come back again, past the station you just entered on, going across the Severn Tunnel. So it's just amazing, really, how they can justify that as a working railway. Anyway, I'll see you down there then, at Pilning, next Friday. Don't be late. Well, this is different to my normal films. Quite interesting, actually. Give it a try. Breathe in. For those of you who only watch the railway films, there is a railway connection, look. This has been kept as found. This is when you get a lot of respect for the people that do the renovations on these things, when you see what they have to start with. It's an AEC Regal 3, built in 1950. And it's one of the last half cabs to be bought for the South Midland service from Oxford to London. In 1959, it was sold on first to Frostways at Kennington and then to two operators in Cardigan. In 1979, it was found in the yard of T.S. Lewis of Llywelyn Lewis and bought to be added to the museum collection. The photos show the coach in service with two of those operators and on its way back to Oxfordshire. It's displayed as found with intention that one day it might be restored. Look at this beast. Bus building from the time of the Great War, so called. There's the power unit. I don't suppose it gave out much power by today's standards, but it probably got it along. And now look at that, there's an oiler there, look, on the chassis for the shackle pin. Absolutely amazing. That's forward thinking. Wonderful. Needs a little bit of rubbing compound and a spot of polish, don't you think? But look, this is 1913 and yet it's already got the basic shape that really carried forward into the modern day. Crude controls. Good Lord. Half shaft's been withdrawn by the looks. All modern springing. For your convenience. Ooh, I don't like that. All wooden construction. Carrying over from the horse and cart days, I guess. Yes, wonderful. This then is a Commer WP3 owned by Lord Lonsdale. They certainly wanted to be noticed when they were off to the races. Built in 1913. Next we have a Morris 1-ton charabanc. Marvellous beast. Fully air conditioned, as you can see, as in the air comes in and you get conditioned to it. Built in 1925. And looking at the horseshoe, next we have an 1881 horse-drawn tram. Look at that for standard of restoration. Absolutely marvellous. 1 horsepower engine at the front. Emergency braking system. Crikey. That's beautiful. Now that looks in there like coil springs. Never is. Oh, lovely. Wonderful. Now if there is a Morris Minor of coaches, this must be it. Excuse me, madam. Excuse me, I'm trying to thank you. This is a Bedford OB Duple, built in 1949, and they were built in huge numbers. There are 250 just in this area alone. So if you're of a certain age, you'll find these things very familiar. They were absolutely everywhere. Wonderful, reliable beast, I guess. Morning. Please yourself. Oh. Sliding roof. Height of luxury. What an absolutely wonderful find. And this is this very coach in front of the queue. Gentleman's day out by the looks. Yeah, a splendid find. I'm sure it brings back memories to 1 or 2 of you as well. Good. Next we have a double-decker bus. This is an AEC Regent 3, built in 1953, and it's the classic double-decker design of the period, made to maximum dimensions. Built to last. Look at the size of that spring. How many thousands of people will have walked onto there? On their way to work, going to the shops, meeting family, going to the pictures. How many thousands of people in there? We pop up to the upper deck. Look at that. How wonderful. You can imagine this packed on a steamy rainy day with condensation running down the windows. Best seat in the house. Smoking allowed up here, with plenty of ventilation. Emergency door. You'd be in big trouble if you had to use that. I don't know if that's so you can see down or they can see up. Both probably. Yeah. Push ones. Wow. And more ventilation. And all the lighting you could possibly hope for. Well. Transportation for the masses. The driver didn't have many home comforts, did he either? And these old things just went on and on and on. Bit like me, really. Standing next door here is an AEC Reliance. We've jumped forward to 1972. Chiltern Queen's bus company no longer going. I don't think AEC is either. The office, rather Spartan. Another giant leap forward now, 1995, and we have a Dennis Dart with Plaxton bodywork. Oh, Dennis. Much more modern shape now, mod cons, smooth lines, latest health and safety grab rails. Even the driver gets off better in this one, slightly. The Kidlington Cavalier apparently refers to Oxford's connection to the Royalists in the Civil War, and all this mechanism, all this work here is to keep the wiper blade upright as it crosses the screen. That's a complicated mechanism. There's a mirror there for looking back, and on the subject of looking back, here's some old photographs. Bus is in trouble. And that's real trouble. Oops. I bet that got their attention. We are far from done. This is a 1915 Daimler Y chassis. It was a lorry built for the First World War. But of course, once the war had finished, they all became surplus to requirement. So the bus companies took them up. Leaf spring and rod brakes. Universal joint for the prop shaft. All solid wheels, of course. And look at that, I wouldn't want to swing that on a cold winter's morning. The office. Centre throttle. And I reckon somebody nicked that off their out of their house. Standing proud. A look down the chassis from the business end. And another look at the controls. And there you can see the gear lever and the handbrake mechanism. Here's something you won't see every day. It's a sectioned bus, so you can see how it's constructed. That's the axle there. You can see the floor up above. I'm not sure if those are air tanks for brakes or for the heating system. A power unit. An old AEC unit. These ones will run for hundreds of thousands of miles if you take reasonable care of them. Leaf spring. Next we have a very, very rare survivor. This is a 1932 open top bus. Look at the horn. Lovely. This had operated in Oxford for a while, and then it was purchased and went down to the seaside, where it ferried happy, smiling, laughing holiday makers up and down the seafront. Isn't that absolutely wonderful? The usual office. Splendid. A 1932 Regal chassis. Now the significance of this is it was actually built for a bus. When you have a lorry, it's kind of up in the air a bit, but on this one, because they've managed to do some clever work with the axles, they've lowered the body in effect, so your passengers now don't have to climb a ladder to actually get into the thing. Of course, then they have to make a space for all the oily bits and pieces. Gearbox to the back of the engine, foot controls, part of the steering, gearbox controls, the fuel tank. But it's very, very innovative. And actually started off proper bus building. So that was 1932. This is 1977. That's a Bristol 70-seat double-decker. Let's go have a quick look round. Two more vehicles I'd like to show you quickly. This is a luxury coach built on a Ford 1014 chassis in 1980, and this is built for the upper market. Big windows, plenty of light, and all out wood veneer. Now look at the amount of light there is in here. That's wonderful, isn't it? The driver has joined us now, again surrounded by wood veneer. Absolutely amazing. Overhead luggage racks, same as the airline industry. Seat belts. And overhead ventilation and lighting, again copied from the airline industry. So you knew you were in luxury when you travelled on this vehicle. Panoramic sunroof. Look at that chrome. Right, and now the next vehicle is a vehicle built to a purpose. This was built as a result of the M40 opening in 1977, which meant that with the right machinery you could now get into London in 100 minutes from Oxford, and so that resulted in this lovely bus. Wonderful piece of machinery. And again, wood veneer, no headrest on the seat, well, proper headrest, but an overhead rack. Very good, very luxurious. Triple sunroofs, and that's how roads make buses. Right, and the gallery is where you can go and watch restoration taking place. This is the museum workshops through here. A special treat. And then if you have a wander around outside, there's all sorts of vehicles parked up here. Buses, of course. I think some of them belong to the museum, and some of these are privately owned. Stored here, and then no doubt rolled out on high days and holidays. And meanwhile we, the public, get to have a close look. Now, if this has given you an appetite for restoration and you fancy restoring an old bus, the museum can help you out there as well. There you go. Have a go at that lot. Interested? Price on application. The cylinder block needs a little bit of work. They'll provide you with a photograph so you can see what the finished job should look like. And this side rear needs a little bit of rubber. Well, a little bit of rubbing down, lick of paint, won't look so bad. There you go. Pause to read if you're interested. And now, you've been very good, so we're going to go out with a special treat. Stand by. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I'd be very grateful if you were to subscribe, like or share. I'll catch you on the next one.